Hello YouTube, I wanted to talk to you guys about Persian. Persian is a language that I really admire. I really like the sound of it. I really like a lot of things about it, and I've been interested in Persian for, maybe about 4 years, but I haven't learned it yet. I don't know that, many words, but I am trying to, try to here and there, try to pick some up. Just my main focus right now is trying to learn more Somali and Arabic, and still maintain my German and Chinese. So, being a polyglot, once you get, acquire some languages, it takes a lot to maintain them, and that's, surely isn't easy. So I wanted to talk about this book here. An Introduction to Persian. I don't know how well you can see that all there. An Introduction to Persian. Here's the back of it. And so I kind of want to talk about Persian, but at the same time do maybe like a book review of this book, or my ideas about the book and my ideas about the language. So first off, Persian is a language that's spoken by a large group of people over a pretty big geographical area, and it's a very ancient language. And despite the fact that it's in the Middle East, and this is something people, usually don't understand when they don't know a lot about languages and how they function and how languages spread, those things, would understand that it's actually an Indo-European language. Persian is an Indo-European language. It's related to European languages like English, German, French, Spanish, Italian, Greek, Russian, and the likes. Also Hindi and Pashto and all these different languages are Indo-European. And they started in the region that's known as the Caucasus Mountains, around that area, Eurasia or Central Asia, and one group went into the European peninsula, this big chunk of land we call Europe, and another went south. They went south through Central Asia. Some of them ended up in what we call Persia or Iran, and then some of them went into India. And that's why people who are Indian, a lot of them are classified as Caucasian, because they're descendants of people from the Caucasus Mountains. And in southern India, you will see people who look less Caucasian, and you will see languages that are not Indo-European at all. And so you have people who speak Kurdish, that go all the way from Syria over to Iran. And I had a Kurdish friend who was in a lot of my linguistics classes in university, and his name is Salam. And so if he's watching, I miss you, man. And Kurdish language is very, very similar to Persian. It's really related. Maybe you might even see them as two dialects of the same language. And Persian is a very, very nice language, and it's, like I said, very ancient. It goes back thousands of years. And so you have these old texts. I think most of the oldest texts related to Persian that exist nowadays are religious texts related to Zoroastrianism. I think those are probably the oldest texts surviving today of some form of Persian. People may famously know about the Persians. My son's banging on the door. What are you doing over there? What are you doing? What are you doing? Okay. Maharuta. Anyways, people, might famously know like Persia from the movie 300, where you had the Persian king fighting the Greeks. And we know Persians from history go way, way, way far back. Persians sacked Jerusalem. Persians, they've been around. They're a big, big empire, long history, long culture. But where there was a really significant change in Persian was with the collapse of the Sassanid Empire. The Sassanids, they had a very, very large, I guess you could say kingdom. The state religion was Zoroastrianism, which was very, very propagated and held quite a lot of prestige in society. The Sassanids were one of two superpowers at the time. So you had the Sassanids on one side, and then you had the Byzantines on the other side. And they were clashing constantly for hundreds of years. Constant warfare. You had what we call today like Iraq in the middle, in between. And so you had some Arab tribes who came up in the middle in this area called Iraq. And half of the Arabs were allied to the Sassanids, the other half were allied to the Byzantines. So you had some that were Christian, some of them even went to the way of the fire worshippers. You had lots of Jewish people in between. A lot of Christians that were seeking asylum from the Byzantines because they didn't have the same theologies. A lot of them went and moved over to the Sassanid Empire. And, there was a lot of cultural exchange and interaction, but they were at war with each other for quite a long time. And they had beaten each other down so bad. And like I said, these were considered the two superpowers at the time. And they had beaten each other down, so they had really weakened each other a lot. And guess what happened? Out of the blue, the Arabs united, and boom, they came right out of Persia. They conquered not only the Sassanid Empire, but eventually conquered the Byzantine Empire as well. And when this happened, really a tragedy happened with the Persian language. Some people view it as a tragedy, but really, we wouldn't have the Persian language as it is today without this, historical event. That's kind of the way of the world. People conquer other peoples and impose their language and culture on them. Just kind of the way it happens. But the conquering Arabs, and this is what I've been told by one of my linguistics professor who is Persian. He told me that basically the Arabs forbade any of the Persian people from speaking Persian in the public arena, the public sphere. So basically they had been forced to speak Arabic, to learn and speak Arabic, a language which is completely unrelated to their own language. Arabic being Semitic, Persian being Indo-European. There couldn't be any two different languages out there. And, they had to learn Arabic and they had to speak it, and that was the way it was. And then at home, inside the house, or maybe in secret, or when, Persians were together alone without anybody else, I'm sure they spoke Persian. And I'm sure they tried to speak it as much as they could without getting in trouble. Who wouldn't? If somebody came to conquer America and said, you have, let's say, for example, Chinese came here and invaded and took over the continent and forced us to speak Chinese. Yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of people would not be cool with that. And they would still speak English as much as they could. And so, what ended up happening is the literary tradition of Persian died, so to say. Poetic tradition died. A lot of the language regarding higher concepts disappeared. For instance, maybe engineering words disappeared. Scientific words might have disappeared in the language, been lost and forgotten. And they were replaced with Arabic words. And even today, when you look at the Persian language as it is today, you know, a lot of the words are basically loan words from Arabic. And this isn't unique to Persian per se. Even when you go into some of them other Indo-European languages like Kurdish and Pashto and Hindi and Urdu and those ones, you'll find a plethora of Arabic loan words too. Like they use the same word dunya for world in Hindi. In Hindi I've also seen the word haqiqa for reality. Like many Arabic words, ishq, which means like passionate love. And also you have hub or muhibba in Hindi and Arabic. So, I mean, it's definitely not alone. Also, you had Indonesian and Malaysian are heavily influenced by Arabic. Swahili is heavily influenced by Arabic. Believe it or not, Spanish is heavily influenced by Arabic because the Arabs conquered Spain for about 800 years. So, like common words like dinero come from the Arabic word dinar. So you have all of these different languages that are affected by Arabic. You know, Turkish is heavily affected by Arabic. I'm sure Kazakh is also affected by Arabic pretty heavily. So learning Arabic definitely is going to help you when it comes to learning other languages, because so many languages have Arabic words in them. Even English has a lot of Arabic words. Alcohol, algebra, algorithm. Magazine comes from Arabic makhazin. So there's definitely a plethora of words from Arabic. Arabic's a very big language. It's, you know, a lot of speakers. It's influenced a lot of things over history. The Arabs were the first to revive, you know, the Greek manuscripts. That's how we know about Plato and all these different philosophers, Aristotle and the likes. And so the Persian language was, you know, heavily took on the persona of Arabic, so to say. It took this outer facade of Arabic using the Arabic script, although it's modified for some phonemes that don't exist in Arabic. And, you know, the grammar is still Indo-European. You can still see a lot of Indo-European words. For instance, I could say, Salam alaikum min hamza am. Okay, and this word is like am in English. It's the same word, exactly the same word. Am. I am. Okay. Men Hamza am. I am Hamza. There's a different word order, but it's the same word. And yeah, so let's get into this book. So an introduction to Persian. And apparently this is the 3rd edition. And the reason why this book in particular I have is because, like I said, one of my professors, he was Persian, and he was one of my linguistics professors at that. His name is Edward Sadrai, formerly known as Mahmoud Sadrai. So Edward, he's one of my favorite professors that I've ever had. I told him I'm very interested in Persian, and could you recommend me a book? So he recommended me to get this one. So, just going over it here. So, it says here in the book that Persian got a big revival after the Mongol invasion. And so the Mongols invaded the Muslim world about the 13th century and pretty much devastated everything that laid in its path. And so you had a revival of the Persian language. Basically, all the grammar, all the syntax, a lot of the vocabulary had changed quite a lot with the Arab conquest. But out came a huge amount of poetry and literature after this Mongol invasion. And Persian basically had become a language that became in common use again. Really saw a revival of it. But even before that, you were starting to see kind of like the pre-stirrings of a revival. And I'll give you an example. This is one book that I really, really love, that I think is a very, very excellent book that is written in Persian. I have the translation of it into English, but there's a Persian, it's originally in Persian, in Farsi. Just one moment, I'll get it for you. That book is so incredibly buried in other books right now, I'll just have to show you an image. Okay, so that book is The Alchemy of Happiness, and that's written by one of the greatest Islamic thinkers, Imam Ghazali, who was not only a philosopher but a theologian, a scholar of jurisprudence, and many, many other things, a big scholar of Sufism and the likes. And I also have another book, and fortunately it's buried also because I'm in the process of moving and putting all my books back into the bookshelves at my new place here. But this book is originally written in Kurdish, and it's a book on Sufism, obviously. But I find it really, really remarkable. So anybody who's interested in Sufism and knows Persian or Kurdish, I would definitely recommend you check out those books, because those are pretty cool books, and those really motivate me to learn Persian. And quite a lot of Islamic thought and Islamic literature came out of Persia. And so, I mean, if you learn Persian, there's quite a lot of literature there to be reading, along with their poetry and different folklores and things like that. But getting back to this book here. Oh, by the way, I think I forgot to mention all the countries where Persian is spoken. So not only is it spoken in modern Iran, but it also is spoken in Afghanistan, where it's called Dari. When I first got out of high school, I tried to join the military because it's a tradition in my family. My father was in the Marines, my grandfather was in the Air Force, and the likes. But unfortunately, I was born with an autoimmune disease, and that gave me some complications, so they didn't want to take me. But what I was going to do, what I was planning on doing anyways, was to become an army linguist. And so I had been learning Dari, which is the Afghani dialect of Persian, and also Arabic. They said Arabic. And because I knew German, they said that they were going to train me further in German, and probably they wanted me to go to Germany. But, life happens. And so it's spoken not only in Afghanistan and in Iran, but also you have it spoken in Tajikistan as well. And when I was talking to my professor, Dr. Sadrai, he was telling me that Tajikistan probably is a good place to go and learn Persian if anyone actually wants to travel abroad to learn Persian. He said Tajikistan is pretty good, and the dialects that they speak there is really close to the standard Persian or the literary Persian, and it's closer to the older form of Persian. Because when you go to different parts of Iran or Afghanistan, they're speaking their own dialects, which really isn't, that close to the standard. So, and every language has that to some extent. So in Tajikistan, it's written with the Cyrillic alphabet. It's not written with the Arabic script, and it has to be because of Russian hegemony. So going here to this first page, I don't know how well you can see that, but right away I'm seeing stuff that reminds me of Arabic. So here it says muqaddama in Arabic, muqaddama, which is introduction. They use the same word. And then it says what looks like talfud, which is the same as Arabic. Arabic you'd say lafz for like phonetics or pronunciation or phonology. And then that must be khut or khat, something like that. I don't know. I don't actually speak Persian, so I'm just kind of faking it. But in here, one thing that I really like about this book, and this is why I really am trying to encourage people, you have to learn the International Phonetic Alphabet if you want to be a polyglot. If you want to learn languages. You don't have to, but it'll really help you a lot. Because right out of the bat, I don't know how well you can see that, it's using IPA. 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 So it helps. And then you know exactly what sound they're referring to. Because sometimes when they try to tell you the sounds in these books without having a CD or some way to listen to it, you're not really going to know what it is. But with IPA, you have a much, much clearer way to know the sound. So here it says Shah for king, a classic. Everyone knows that one, right? And then here, too, you also have IPA again. So IPA is real important, guys. But here, when I'm just looking at some of these words, I mean, some of them clearly are Arabic words. You have like suhba, you have sharh, you have sahr, looks like fahm. Those are clearly look like Arabic words. Whether they have the same meaning, I don't know. But and here it goes over the Persian alphabet or the Persian script, which is basically the Arabic script superimposed. And it looks like they call them, some of the exact same. They have the same name for the letters as Arabic too, like alif, jim, kha, dal, thal. Here it says zal. Maybe it's a Z to them. Zal. Sin, sheen, sod, zod. It looks like for bod is zod. Then you have like ta, zaw, ayn. Then it says with a Q like qayn. They mustn't do the r sound. Qaf, kaf, gaf, lam, mim. So a lot of it is kind of similar to the Arabic alphabet there. And then it gives you examples of the handwriting and those types of things here. And if we go further into it, starts to get into the grammar.